Boom! What's going on, Internet? What's up? This is MJT Football. We're three friends who love talking about the NFL. We're always looking for a fourth, so consider hitting the subscribe button. All things are welcome in the chat. We don't have a ton planned for the show, so we're going to do something that we call dove diving, whatever it is. We're just going to scroll through Dov's timeline on Twitter and look at posts, talk about the NFL. Like I said, all things are welcome in the chat over there. We will open up the show talking about the documentary Receiver. I haven't started Hard Knocks yet. That's on my list of things to do. Probably by next week, I'll catch up on that. I'll have more thoughts on the Giants offseason because all of those things interest me. But let's go, Joe. Joe, how are you doing? How's your summer going? Anything you want to talk about, get off your chest, put out there? What's going on?
Who the fuck pissed off the sun? That's what I want to know. Why is the sun burning everybody up? It's been like 2 weeks. Calm down a little bit, right? We don't need you at 100. We all know you're real, dude. We all know that the sun is real. We don't need him at 100 right now. Bring it down. Like I think I'm just losing weight just by being in the sun. Like I just walk outside and I'm like, I smell bacon and stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's just me. It's just me. Like, holy crap, it's been hot.
Joe, we live in beautiful California. Enjoy the weather, man. Come on. I know it's 100 degrees outside, but you'd rather be 100 degrees than 30 degrees out there.
No, you can always warm up. You can never cool down.
I agree with that.
AC, I don't know.
So I'm kind of with Joe, and I may have contradicted myself a little bit, but I think I would rather be cold than hot.
I think I'd rather be cold too, actually.
Yeah.
I'm on your guys' side, even though I was just making fun of Joe. If I had to pick, I would pick cold. And it's a good thing that Rosemary, and shout out everybody, the chat is completely free. Rosemary's in the chat here. It's a good thing that she put this because I've told her this so many times. With 100 degrees heat, it's hot outside, or 30 degrees temperature, it's cold outside. But there's like this huge zone in between like 50 and 85 where you should be comfortable. And people be getting cold at 75 and hot at 80. And it's like, guys, that's all in your head. It's not actually hot outside. It's not actually cold outside. It's in our little range in between 50 and 80.
Mentally strong, Tony. Just like
if it's in between 50,
you couldn't walk on hot lava.
If it's in between 50 and 80 degrees outside, you cannot be cold nor hot. You are content.
So I agree. I think that there is like a certain limit because like I always talk about growing up in Michigan, where I grew up, that's the kind of cold that nobody wants to be a part of, right? Where it's like it's oppressively cold. It'll be negative 15 degrees some days where you're just miserable. And that's too cold. But when I say cold, I mean, I'm good with the weather getting down into the 40s, and I'm fine. I would prefer that than it to be in the hundreds like it's been where we're at here. And yes, he's airing out problems, issues there, but that's fine. This is a safe.
I'm wearing a long sleeve right now.
Our point right there. Rosemary just made the point. If you're cold, grab a blanket. If you're hot, there's nothing you can actually do about it.
Especially if there's company over. Like, you can't just, start shedding clothes while there's people in your house. Like, it's not okay.
Depends what kind of company.
Like, I don't know what it is, but there's a big difference between my AC unit upstairs and downstairs. But you walk downstairs, oh my gosh, like your toes are getting frostbite right now. And I love it. And my wife can't stand it, but I love it. And I go, don't touch the thermostat. Don't ever touch it. I think I even broke it where she can't even touch it right now.
That sounds like a Bakersfield problem if I ever heard one right there. Like, they just got all these monstrous houses out there in the desert where no one wants to live.
Like, I think she got close to it, and I was like, nope, get away. Like, I put sensors around.
If she came home and you had somebody putting it up at like 6.5 feet where she'd have to get a chair to like get to it or something, just putting it out of her reach. She's got to use like a broom to like push buttons on there. All right, good. We complained about the heat. I'm sure it's hot for everybody wherever they're at. Hopefully they're staying cool, having a good time. Lots of training videos, and I'm sure we'll get to some when we start scrolling through Duff's timeline. But just so receiver comes out. Yeah. I really enjoyed quarterback last year on Netflix. I know some people aren't necessarily as into this, like even when I talked to Mike, he said it was, parts of it were a little boring or whatever. I'm only 2 episodes in, but from the first 2 episodes, my biggest takeaways were, one, before George Kittle was already one of my favorite players, because you guys know how I deem football players as like guys that can do everything. Like I'm a huge Hines Ward supporter as being a great wide receiver because of everything that he did. I feel the same way about tight ends. I think if you play tight end, you should be able to block and you should be able to catch. You should be able to be involved in all parts of football. So he's already been one of my favorite players. He's extremely entertaining and he has so much fun on game day. Like he's not just like excited and like angry. He's excited and like ready to just go out there and has fun just whipping people the whole game. Like blocks or whatever. Like there's one block where he's blocking the guy and he falls down. The guy goes, "Oh, I tripped my feet." And George is like, no, buddy, that was all me. Like he's just letting him know, like, you're going on this ride because I was sent here to kick ass. And that's all I'm going to do for the next 60 minutes of this game is wear you out. Whether it's in the pass game, in the run game, like I am such a fan of George Kittle. And this is like taking it to a whole nother level. And his wife is cool as shit. Like, how much fun would it be to be on that party bus, like pregame? Like, I'm not a Niners fan. In fact, I kind of hate on the Niners a little bit, but I would have so much fun on that bus. Like, it would be great.
And the picture of him on that bus.
Oh, that's great too. Yeah. Like
I'm sure everybody in San Francisco, all the dudes in San Francisco love looking at that bus when it's pulling up to the stadium. I'm sure a lot of them were like, "That's George." You know what I mean?
We're already getting off the rails this early into the show.
I'm with you, Mike.
He's a little zesty. He is a little zesty.
I like the show. I like the show, but there's part of it where I'm like, all right, they don't need this. There's a lot of filler in there that they could have cut out. I think that I got kind of bored through, especially like the first episode. I was like, all right, dude, hurry the hell up. Like this is kind of dragging a little bit. But the second episode got better, and I think it got better after that. But I don't know. Like we talked about this last week, and I've said it multiple times. Like I wanted the access, and I don't know if I want it anymore. Like sometimes I don't want to know the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. But I think just like last year with Kirk Cousins, this is what kind of people have to see, the injuries. Like when these players are taking these injuries and these hits every week, and to see what they're going through like mid-game. I mean, Tony, you saw in episode 2 with Davante Adams when he played the Chargers, when his AC joint or when he did his shoulder, you see him in the tunnel sitting there like in pain, wondering what he's going to do to get back in, and he wants to come back in the game. You saw it with Justin Jefferson when he did his hamstring, right? Like I think it's giving the players a little bit more respect, even though they should have already had it. But it's making people that don't know what football players actually go through. And they actually get to see the pain and agony that these guys go through each and every week. And it's not just one time. It's going on through the whole thing. I don't know if you saw, Tony. I don't know if you heard it. But did you hear what Van Rotten told Davante Adams in the huddle when he came back from in the game?
Yeah.
I was like, really? Like, really, dude?
And Davante's reaction was perfect, too. He goes, great. That's real encouraging. He's like, because he goes, oh, yeah, I had an AC joint in high school. And he's like, that shit still bothering me. And Davante's like, thanks a lot. That's really encouraging. I really appreciate that. I like that interaction. So my thing is this, Joe, is like, and Mike, I'm going to let you talk. I'll make this real quick. I think this is great because shit is getting way too out of hand with people on the internet coming at these athletes sideways, saying shit about their toughness, saying shit about them personally. I love the fact that we get to see them be parents. We get to see them interact. We get to see their off days. Like, start understanding that all of these human beings are giving everything they possibly can to get out there, yes, to earn a lot of money, but also to entertain us. Like the sacrifices they make to get out there. Like George Kittle actually says, I love playing a short week of football. I love playing 2 giant football games in a short week so I can get a couple extra days with my wife. I think this is great. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys for the most part. By the way, Tony, that wasn't just like a little block. That was a pancake block on Aiden Hutchinson, one of the best edge rushers in the league right now. Yeah, it was very entertaining to see how George Kittle plays. And I kind of just binge watched this while I was editing yesterday. And I kind of made my wife mad because I realized that my wife probably would be a big fan of George Kittle like she is some of the Chargers players just because of his personality. That's kind of the way like I played when I was a kid too, just like goofing off, having fun out there. And that's what I like to see the most about George Kittle. The stuff that I like out of these documentaries the most is to see like some of these guys' mentalities. And I don't think every single person in the league has a mentality or a mindset at the level of Amon-Ra St. Brown. And maybe that's what really truly separates these guys. But just to see him like preparing for the season and all of his goals being listed on that paper and him chasing those goals throughout the season, even with hip injuries and all kinds of other injuries. And these guys, it seems like every football player gets a shoulder injury at some point. That seems inevitable. Yeah. All these guys had shoulder injuries. I have a shoulder injury. Everyone has a shoulder injury if you played football for more than like a day in your life. But yeah, it's just cool to see the mindset. That's my favorite part of it. I'm not a big TV guy. I don't like watching TV for very long periods of time. Like even when I was watching this, it was just like on my iPad off in the corner of the desk somewhere. So I don't really have a great TV mind to break this down entertainment value wise. Just as a football fan, I like to see these guys' mentalities. Like I feel like out of all those guys, Deebo Samuel was like the least willing to just like go out there and put his body on the line, but he's the most physical in his play style. So it's interesting.
Wait, I don't elaborate on that because I don't fully get what you're saying, because I think the opposite way. Sometimes I think Deebo tries too much for the extra yards. Like even that play at the goal line where they're applauding him for not reaching, right? It's like he's still trying to, dude, you're at the 2-yard line. It's okay to go down, but he's like, that wasn't Deebo. I didn't get in there. And it's like, there are 3 human beings all weighing over 200 pounds trying to destroy you right here, and you're trying to get an extra inch. Like, to me, that's the mindset of Deebo, where it's like that kind of shit is going to shorten your career by 2 years.
I mean, less so on like actual play and like trying to fight for extra yards and stuff like that, and more so like, for example, comparing the Devontae Adams injury to all 3 of the injuries Deebo suffered throughout that docuseries. I feel like Devontae Adams' injury was worse than all 3 combined. Deebo missed like 4 games and Devontae missed 0, right? I don't know if he missed any games last year.
Well, so, okay. Let's just say that he's out there, and a lot of times, like, you can use Devontae as like a good decoy. And if it's a shoulder injury, it's one thing. But when you get lower body injuries that you have out there, to me, the injury that I can't even believe he finished the season with is Amon-Ra, is when they're like, oh yeah, so your oblique or whatever it was is torn off the bone. And I'm like, okay, your season's over. Oh, but I already know that this dude was an all-pro receiver last year with that injury and the toe injury where they're putting steel plates in his shoes. It's like, dude, this is unreal. Where you ever see the person who like stubs their toe, and stubbing your toe hurts way worse than anybody ever wants to admit. But when you do it at the beginning, you're like, that's it. They're going to have to amputate my foot. Like when you really catch it good on like metal or something, and it's like, you're like, that's it. Cut it off, doc. And then the pain kind of subsides. You can deal with it. And it's just sort of a little tender walking around. Like this dude is running crisp routes with what looks like to be a toe that got yanked in a direction it's not supposed to go. Then the next week ends up suffering that injury and is still out there every single week. So like, I don't know how to quantify. I told you, I'm going to do 2 episodes in a row every couple of days. I like to milk this. I'm not going to binge watch this. Although let's be honest, by next Friday, I'll be done with it.
Exactly.
That's training camp starting up. Like you gotta go.
I tried to binge watch it for the flat fact that I wanted to get a post out before anyone else could finish it. That's basically the reason why I binge watched it. But there's 2 other parts that are gonna come up, Tony, that you're gonna see with Amon-Ra. One, he gets really fucking sick, like where he can't feel his hands, his feet, and still plays through a game and has a great game. And then 2, there's a moment where they're doing a film study in front of the whole team, and it's one of the games that the Lions lost last year, and they were out of it. And you know, there was a Hail Mary shot, but the game was pretty much over, and it got to a point where they were just trying to run the clock out. And Amon-Ra was out there laying out the opponent's backup defensive backs and blocking.
Love it.
Because he knew he couldn't run routes anymore because they weren't going to call any more pass plays. So what can I do? I can go and lay people out. And when you talk about Dan Campbell, guys, that's probably the most Dan Campbell thing you'll ever see. Dan Campbell probably went to the GM and management and was like, I don't care how much we got to pay him this offseason. You see this? You see this? This is the exact player that we give that money to.
Yeah.
It's also that thing. Like, I have loved it ever since I heard what do you do to get your hands that good? I catch 200 balls on the jugs machine. Well, I'm going to catch 202 every day. Yeah. It's like that sort of mindset for whatever it is. It's like that little extra bit separates you. You know, it'd be like with my kid who's he's very much into animation, wants to be an animator. It's like, okay, well then you should be dedicating this much time to all of the techniques you're learning, the shading, the technology, whatever it is. Like, if you really do want this and you want to be an animator for one of these major companies that you aspire to be, then this is what it should be. It should be like almost treating it like a job. Like, it's not just, it's a dream to be at the highest level of anything, but it's like work that gets you to be there. It doesn't matter whatever it is. Doctors, like, you know, like, oh, well, I'm a thoracic surgeon or whatever. There's a difference between that person's commitment to what they were doing and the person that just ends up being like a pediatrician. Like, we need both of those things, but like the amount of work that you put in to get to what your dream level is, like, it matters. And you see Amon-Ra, who's not a prototypical size, you know, height, weight receiver, is one of the best to do it because the amount of work that he's willing to put in every single day and wants to, like, needs to, is addicted to it.
Yeah, and his parents, that's kind of like a really rare combo right there. You got a guy who came from nothing, worked his ass off to get everything he had in his life, who's also a really good athlete, apparently, when he was younger, according to his own claims, mixed with, you know, German woman, really disciplined, completely different culture, completely different mindset, and you put those two together and you get the St. Brown boys. I mean, that's awesome. And like, even his dad's mindset, I don't know if you got to this part yet, Tony, I don't know how much you watched, Joe. His dad's mindset when they were kids, because their original last names was just Brown. And he was like, that's too boring. Like, because he's like, these guys are going to be athletes. They're going to be superstars. They need a cool last name. So with his mom being German, they changed their last name to St. Brown just for that reason. For the back of the jersey.
I haven't gotten to that part yet, but I feel like that to me is like, that's rare. Yes, you are strategizing in your head, like you're already doing marketing and you're in some form of the entertainment business, which he was in. He was in competitive entertainment, which is what all sports are. And so it's like you start understanding the little tricks that you need to get to that point. You know, if your name is, there was a golfer, I think his name was like David Tom. He golfed at the same time as like Tiger Woods. Like, already I want to know more about whoever Tiger Woods is based on David Tom. Like that. So you have all of those little elements in there.
Super cool.
And you know what? Here's another thing too. I don't know. You've seen this part, Tony, where Davante Adams' wife invited the whole class over for, and they're like, yeah, some of these people don't even know he's a football player. I'm like, to me, I'm like, my whole world revolves around the NFL. Like, everything I do, I think about football every single day. So to me, for people to be out there that don't even know who Davante Adams is, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, wow, like you exist? Like, there's people like you out there?
Well, I bet after they went to his house for the party, they probably Googled him.
That's what I always tell you guys, is because you guys are we're all so saturated with NFL and everything, like knowing assistant offensive line coaches on some teams, you know, like, but there are people who don't watch the Super Bowl, who like actively avoid all of this stuff. And so they really aren't that, you know, like, don't know all of those people. They might be able to, identify a Patrick Mahomes or somebody that they've seen on multiple commercials, you know, like they'll know those type of things. They'll know Tom Brady. They know guys that cross over and stuff. Davante Adams is not one of those guys. So amongst NFL knowledgeable people, you all know who he is. But the average person isn't going to know who Davante Adams is.
And there really is levels to it. Like, for example, at a July 4th party I was at recently, we were playing a game. It's a spelling game where they come up with like random topics or random ideas, and you have to come up with a word that matches the letter that the game determines. So, for example, in the game, it told us that we had to make words out of the letter C, and the category was celebrity. And I was just talking to one of the guys who I just met that day, and he was telling me that he's a big Seahawks fan because we were talking about football and stuff and jobs and all that kind of shit. And then I was like, okay, this is a perfect moment. Celebrity, and the goal is if you can get like a double, like a CC name, you get bonus points. So I was like, Charles Cross. This is so perfect. It's a tackle for the Seahawks. Just told me he's a Seahawks fan. I'm gonna put it out there. No one's gonna know who it is except for this guy. We're gonna have this moment together. He had no idea who Charles Cross was.
Dude,
I'm like, you're a Seahawks fan, my guy. What are you doing?
You could have went Chris Carson, right? You could have went Chris Collinsworth. You could have went Chris Carter. I could have CC'd the shit out of this game.
We could have CC'd the whole NFL, and he didn't even know who his own player was. So I was like, all right, well, when he said Seahawks fan, you meant like I wear Seahawks ball caps when I watch football games.
Yeah. In which the NFL is a lot of that, right? Like that's how you get hundreds of millions of fans, and that's how you get things there. The thing that the NFL is thriving off of right now is people like us, is the minority of people who are still like, oh, wait, did you see this post? Like what we're about to do, where we're sending each other off-season bullshit from Dov Kleinman's timeline. Like that's how the NFL keeps staying like in the conversation year round, is because of guys like us that are like, hey, we just enjoy consuming football. And one of the things I realized this week when talking to my wife was like, because I really love TV shows, but the older I get, the more like emotions in shows really start to weigh on me. There was scenes in a show we were watching last night where the mom is dying and kids are saying bye to their mom. That really brings up some bad shit, some bad memories for me, especially this time of year was when my mom passed away, and I start getting emotional. The reason I love the NFL is I get all the emotion, but it's all the crazy excitement or anger or whatever it is for a couple of hours and it goes away. It doesn't really it doesn't hurt me or make me feel bad. I just get to be excited about something and then it just goes away. So like TV, the things that people binge or whatever, like eventually they just start to be a little too real, you know? It's like, and I don't necessarily always want to be in that world. And that's why football is my favorite escape from real life. And it will be forever and ever.
And that's why I hate the show Receiver, because it's bringing up all the fucking memories from last year. And I already buried them. I've already gotten to the new Raider way, and it's just like bringing all this crap back. And like just watching the losses, and I'm like,
that loss to the Chargers. I love it.
We talked about Debo. We talked about Kittle. We talked about Amon-Ra. Justin Jefferson's was pretty on par to what you'd expect Justin Jefferson to be like. But Joe, I gotta hear your take if you watch this doc on all the stuff that y'all put Devontae Adams through last year. I mean, Devontae Adams looked like he was going through hell in this documentary.
I mean, I know they do it for the TV aspect of it, so they build it up a little bit more. It's a little overrated in some aspects of the show, and then some of it, I've always told Raider fans, like, I don't care what we gave up for Devontae Adams. Like that first and second round pick was worth it. I mean, just show up early to a game and watch what Devontae Adams puts on before the game, let alone in the game. Like, this is the greatest wide receiver in the game right now, and we have him on our team, even if we're losing. And so I don't know. He was frustrated, and there's a lot of things too. But like, he kind of came off as a little bit of the diva too. Like, you know, you're gonna get hit, but this is what you signed up for. Like when you left Green Bay, you kind of knew where you were going.
I kind of disagree. I don't think he was being a diva. I think he was being reasonable because, I understand if he was a rookie wide receiver coming in the league with no cred, with nothing built up, and he's already complaining this much, sure, maybe he's being a diva. We're talking about an all-pro wide receiver in the NFL, probably a future Hall of Famer. Like, this guy deserves a certain level of play in the pocket. Like, he should expect that no matter who is there. So when Jimmy G is throwing him into a hospital room every single freaking drive, I wouldn't even say game. Some of them was almost every drive. It seemed like Davante Adams was getting thrown into a hospital hit. He should be complaining about that. He should be asking for the next guy up if it's that bad and the team's not winning games and he's getting one target in a game at home versus his old team. That's just embarrassing, honestly. I would be pissed too if I was in Davante Adams' shoes, and I would have wanted the hell out of there last year, let alone, this year. What's about to happen?
So I don't think franchises owe any of these players as much as some fans think they do. But I do think there's a little bit where if you're going to make an investment in Davante Adams, then it would be smart business to try and locate a future quarterback for your franchise or who it is. And I think that Derek Carr was that guy, and the owner inexplicably just decides to side with a coach who wasn't getting any results. And he then said, like, well, we weren't getting results before Derek, so maybe Derek is the issue. Derek was never the issue there. Like, is there a ceiling for him? Sure. But they're not, it doesn't even seem like they're trying to figure that out for Davante Adams. And that's the part where I think, like, you could make a claim that they do owe him at least the pursuit of a franchise quarterback.
They have $40 million in cap space right now.
I don't know.
They're sitting on it. They're just sitting on it.
What's out there?
Monte's going to leave, and then they're going to go after a quarterback, and then what's it going to matter? Or are they going to be the team that goes, you know what? Didn't work in New York. Aaron, come and try it out here, which will be the funniest thing ever. Honestly, I would never want to see Aaron Rodgers in a Raiders uniform, but with how much shit you've talked about him, Joe, I think it might be worth it at this point to get Aaron Rodgers.
Are you going to gobble him down when he's on the Raiders?
Not as much, no, but I just think it'll be funny to see you hate on him while he's on the Raiders.
Same thing with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott would be a good Raider quarterback next year.
True.
And I talk a lot of shit. It doesn't matter. I talked a lot of shit about everybody.
The day Dak gets signed, I am turning on him with the most vulgar laced video. Like, if he becomes a Raider, I'm turning on Dak fully. But yeah, that was my favorite part. That was my favorite part of the whole documentary. No other part was any better. Was when Davante revealed to the production crew in that little tell-all, like, yeah, I met with Aaron for 4 hours last night, and we just could not stop talking. Eventually, it just got too late, and we had to go home. And then you see the clip of them on the field after, and how Davante's saying, like, I know next year is going to be better. And Aaron Rodgers is like, yeah, I have a feeling it's going to be better for you too, buddy. Like, yeah, he could be saying it's going to get better now that you guys got Antonio Pierce, or he could be saying, like, I've already talked to Joe. If you ever become available, we're trading for you.
Okay. You guys are getting too spoiler here. Let's
I'm enjoying
my kid. I'm not saying nothing. But Aaron Rodgers did come out yesterday on the golf course and say he wants to play with Davante Adams. He can't wait to play with Davante Adams, and he said again, like it's gonna happen. Like,
and again, and this is a good transition for you, Tony, because we're going straight into Dove hyping up this stuff. He means golf, but I am all for hyping up and feeding that he means football.
Yeah,
but I don't know if you saw Breece Hall today. Breece Hall was on Kay Adams, and she was asking him about what Davante Adams would bring to the Jets, and he was basically talking like he was already a Jet. I don't know if you guys saw the Breece Hall interview.
I did not.
Tony, same thing. If Davante Adams is traded to the Jets, are you Super Bowl run?
No, the Jets are cursed, Mike. There's nothing about the fucking Jets that makes them a good team.
You just can't get over the curse?
No, they can have the best team in the world. You can put the all-star players together, and the Jets will somehow fuck it up.
I do think that it's very contingent on health for the offensive line. I think they can lose players to injury on defense. All teams are going to suffer attrition. It's where it's suffered. And if the suffering is on the offensive line, I do not think that is something that they can withstand even a little bit. But they could have some injury trouble in the secondary, or even with some of the skill position players on offense. Rodgers is going to figure that out, how to still get him there. If they lose a tackle, a center, I just don't see how the offensive line is strong enough for that team to continue to win at that sort of a level, even if they do have 2 elite wide receivers at that point. And then I will put Garrett Wilson there in that elite category because I think that that's his range with competent quarterback play. So like you have a future Hall of Famer and a future, all pro caliber player. Like, yeah, you have a great team, but I don't know. Like, I'm still not putting the Jets in the Super Bowl, Mike. It's just not going to happen. Like, I can't see it.
Tyron Smith, John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, Vera Tucker, and Morgan Moses. That's your offensive line for the Jets right there.
And David Bakhtiari, don't forget about him. And Mekhi Becton's on the team still, kind of.
No, Mekhi Becton's on the team.
He get cut?
I thought he signed somewhere else. He signed with where did Mekhi Becton sign? I thought he signed as a backup. I want to say he signed.
When did Bakhtiari sign?
Mike's just putting Bakhtiari on there because he saw him at TEU out there.
Yeah, I thought he came out and said he wasn't going with Jets. But come on, like how many games do you think the Jets get of those 5 offensive linemen? Like that 5 starting core all together.
If they get 14, they're going to win 11 of those 14, and then the rest won't matter.
And that's what I'm saying. If you can get with that starting 5, if you can get 13 to 14 healthy games at that starting 5, they can be in a spot where they're winning 11, 12 games this year. Because that defense is legit. That defense is going to be number 1. A lot of times I think it's hard for defenses to continue to maintain the success from year to year, but that defense is built for it because of the defensive line rotation that they have and because of the players they have in the secondary and then linebacker play. Quincy Williams is one of those guys that we don't talk about at middle linebacker, like with Roquan and Fred Warner and stuff, but Quincy Williams he's a dude. Are
they going to get Reddick to show up? Is he going to show up soon?
Who?
Yeah, he just takes us to the next level. Man, I don't know what you guys are freaking looking at. Like, I pulled the roster here. I see the concerns with the O-line if they lose the tackles, but I feel like that's a concern for everyone. But you're saying that, Joe, like let's say Tyron Smith goes down in week 2. Why do you think they drafted Fashanu?
Okay, so then you're putting a rookie out there, which is good, but sometimes rookies go through their draft pain. I'm not even just talking about that.
True, but you're acting like they're SOL. They don't even got a starting caliber guy available when they got a top 10 pick as their backup swing tackle, and they have a decent interior O-line. Like, this is a good O-line with a super defense and super weapon core.
And so the only reason that I say that
Jets gear on, we might as well just get you some Jets gear.
I got some Jets gear lying around here. If you want to,
I think you defend the Jets more than you defend any other team. Like
I have a Rodgers Packers jersey.
I will say this. The reason that I stress the offensive line in the way that I do is because the quarterback is 40 years old coming off an Achilles tear. And that's the thing where the offensive line is that much more, it is more intricate to the success than it has been in the past. If this are 33, 34-year-old Rodgers, then I'm not as worried about the offensive line at all. And I'm saying the Jets are in that Super Bowl conversation.
Who do they play week 1? Who did the Jets play week 1?
Playing 49ers on Monday Night Football in San Francisco.
They're going to upset them.
Maybe they do. Maybe they do. But that defensive line that he's going to be playing in week 1 it's going to be a real test. I want to talk quickly.
A real test for Brock Purdy. I'll tell you, that's a test for.
Anthony Monsanto had something here where he talked. He said he brought this up where I disagree. If a player has been loyal to a franchise their whole career and he wants to be traded to a certain team to win a championship, the franchise owes him that much for the loyalty. I disagree, buddy. It's a business, and that's just not how life works. If an organization is in a position where they can do that, they want to do that, that's great. But I don't think they owe that to the players. Like they should want to get them to a good situation, but they don't have to trade them to the exact team that they want to. Like I don't believe that. They still owe it to the other 52 players on their team to try and make moves to put them in a situation to win. And if team A that the guy wants to go to is offering a 5th round pick, and team B is still a good situation, but they're offering a 2nd or 3rd round pick, you need to go with team B, even if that player doesn't like it, because that is how it works.
Yeah, and really the Devonta Adams situation isn't even really the example to use, because if anything, the Raiders overpaid for him. They paid a fair price to get Tay in there with a 1st and 2nd round pick for a 30-year-old receiver. I think that the Packers did good there. They didn't necessarily get forced into that deal.
So just to be clear and to defend Anthony's comments, I don't think he's talking about Devonta Adams. I think he's talking about my overall thoughts of like, yes, like what a team owes. Like in a situation with like Junior Seau, was it like, did he, like if they would have traded him to the Patriots or whatever, like did he need to be traded to the Patriots in a situation like that? Like if Gates would have wanted to leave, would they have needed to look to like, hey, we're trading you to, at the end of his career, we're trading you to the 49ers to go play next to George Kittle or what, fill in the blank team to end up there. And I just don't think that they do. Albert, what's going on, player? The last thing I want to say, and this will be real quick, about the wide receiver documentary, I am so jealous of guys like Justin Jefferson who can eat all the fucking candy they want and just stay in amazing shape. I get so jealous when I see people's cabinets and it's filled with all the stuff that I would love to eat on a regular basis, and I can't for either health reasons, physical reasons, like all the things, like the amount of work that I have to put into just to stay average is ridiculous. Even when I was his age, I couldn't eat candy the way this guy eats candy. It just pisses me off when I see that shit.
The metabolism boosters right there, Tony.
I never had it. My brother got all the metabolism. My brother's like 40 years old and still just, shredded. Guy doesn't work out a day in his life.
I did have one thing. It is a receiver thing, but he's not on the receiver. He wasn't on the show. I don't know if you guys saw that Adam Thielen was being talked to, and the Chiefs fan was like, hey, why didn't you come to Kansas City? He goes, I tried. They didn't want me. He goes, I tried to go to Kansas City last year. They didn't want me. I think that was kind of interesting that the Kansas City turned down Adam Thielen, if that is true.
So I think, again, it was I don't think that it's that they didn't want Adam Thielen as much as what does Adam Thielen want, and this is what we're willing to pay. Like a lot of times those type of things get lost in the conversation where it's like, oh, they didn't want me, right? Like Austin Eckler came out and said, oh, the Chargers didn't want me. And it's like, no, the Chargers may have wanted you back on the team at the same kind of contract they signed Gus Edwards to, at like $2 million a year, not $6 million a year, which you got in Washington. And as a Chargers fan, I'm happy for him. Austin Eckler has been one of my favorite players. He will continue to be one of my favorite players. And I wish him a ton of success in Washington. But like, you can't just be like, oh, the team didn't want me. It's like, no, they may have wanted you, but they didn't want you at that number. They want you at this number, and you want that number, and that's fine. Go get your money. Get paid.
Yeah, and it's not a great sales pitch when Eckler's also there saying like, yeah, and they wanted me to carry the ball 300 times a game. I can't do that. And it's like, bro, well, you can't ask for their max dollar if you can't give them the max production that they want. Like something's got to give here. Either you're going to get the ball 300 times, or you're going to get it 250 and take less money, or 200 and take less money. Which one do you want, buddy? You can't have both.
Yeah, that's exactly how that equation works.
But Joe, the thing about Adam Thielen is that I remember when that was all going down, and he was doing interviews after signing with the Panthers, and he was making it seem like he chose the Panthers over the Chiefs. I even made a video about this. And I was like, you're crazy for choosing the Panthers over the Chiefs. Now it comes out the real story. The Chiefs actually turned him down, and he was playing some games a little bit.
But here's the thing, Tony. Like the receiver, of course, they sign up for it, so they go, "Yeah, I'll be on that show." So Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, they all those guys knew their lives and everything they did for the season was going to be on field. Okay, but the shows like Hard Knocks and stuff like that, where like the GM's talking to Saquon Barkley. And Barkley's saying stuff that he doesn't. Do you think that he knows that he's on camera? Like he doesn't know that. And for the Giants to put some of this out there, it's kind of screwed up, right?
I think he has to know. I don't think that they could be, because now imagine if Saquon comes out at his next press conference and goes, "Oh yeah, Brandon Beane never let me know I was on the phone. I didn't know that these conversations were being recorded." Brandon Beane's going to look like a piece of shit and going to be not trustworthy or anything. Like you have to tell him, you have to say, like, even if they didn't tell him directly, they had to let his reps know and say, "Hey, just a heads up, like let Saquon know when he does call, we are going to be rolling footage for NFL Films to be in here getting stuff for Hard Knocks. Like they have to. You can't not tell somebody that they're being recorded. Like even if they would cut out, like let's say he got on there and just said a bunch of horrible shit and they're like, oh yeah, don't worry, we're going to cut that stuff out anyways. We don't want you talking about that. Is associated with the NFL to begin with. You still have to tell him. You still have to let him know that this is what it's being used for.
You've never 100%. Done that for me. You've never cut out.
No, you won't. And wait till the season gets started. Me and Mike have, like you saying, some crazy shit recorded on the phone. Yeah, about where it is.
You're screwed. You're absolutely. I can't wait for the rest of this stuff to drop, Tony. I can't wait because there's just little pieces left in this story, and we'll have the whole thing on Saquon pretty much and what happened.
Okay, now see.
We just need just a few more steps towards becoming an Eagle, and it'll all be out there. And I can't wait to make a video about it.
Well, wait till we get into the season, and it is Giants-Eagles week, whenever that is. He's going to sit down for an interview with the team. He's going to talk about stuff going in, and they're going to be able. He's going to drop a nugget here or there, especially if for game 2, like if game 1, he's already put up a $180 and a couple of touchdowns in the week 1, and he's feeling really good. He's going to go in and talk about certain things from that. At least I think he will. I would hope that there'll be a little bit more drama added and built up in that situation.
Be fun. Seeing all these shows, does it make you would you want to have your team on these shows?
No, absolutely not.
Exactly. I would. Like, please let it be other teams. Like,
no,
I would. I don't care.
No, absolutely.
What's the negative in it? I mean, it's kind of just like everyone gets to talk shit about you or just be like react to your mess, I guess.
Actually, let me put it like this. I do think that in year 3 or 4 of Harbaugh, the organization will be more in a position to be able to handle it, to have a structure. You have to have such a strong, like, organizational, like, chart, just everything, like all the measures have to be there for any drama, any fallout, any like begrudging moments where it's like, oh, the coach treated me like this, or this was on camera, or whatever it is, because you don't want players to start going like, oh, look at this, like we look stupid, or he said this bad shit about me, or whatever. Because inside of all those buildings, the things we don't get to see is like these guys are all talking, they're all hanging out, they're all working together. Like you have to be so cohesive. Like when you hear Andy Reid talking about how hard it is to win championships every year, like, and this guy's won 3 and 4 years. When Belichick talks about winning championships and they talk about how hard you have to work and then still get lucky, like you don't want cameras. You don't want interviews. You think Harbaugh wants his social media team in there asking, hey, can you guys touch your toes? That was a video that came out on Chargers social media. Did he want his 6'8" tackle out there, like touching his toes? Like he doesn't necessarily want that shit out there, but he understands the business side of things. Like they got to have a little bit of it. You don't want your team on Hard Knocks. I would watch the shit out of it. I would love it. I would watch probably multiple times if the Chargers were on there. But I don't.
They were on it. They were on it a few years ago. It was Justin Herbert's rookie year. It was actually really cool. I really liked it. So maybe that's why I'm thinking I would want one. Also, I'm thinking that this window is open for a couple of years here, where we could see an LA versus LA Super Bowl. And if they can make a doc about that, that would be so sick. But they got to time it up where the perfect year for the Rams and the perfect year for the Chargers lines up, and they can do the dual Hard Knocks again.
Yeah, no, I think that I watched that season and I really enjoyed it. And I remember going into that year, like talking like Tyrod Taylor's going to win 11. You guys know how I get when I watch Hard Knocks on a team. I always just I inflate their win total by 5 games. But like what I'm saying is in the situation where you don't necessarily have the structure, I don't think it's great for you. And a lot of teams, the teams that end up on there are teams that don't have the structure built being on TV like that.
Another thing is I have confidence that things would go very smoothly and Harbaugh would look good at the end of it. I wouldn't have that much confidence if I was a fan of another team that plays in the desert. Not the Cardinals.
You're talking a lot. Mike, you would fit in well with the Chargers social media. You run your mouth and your team can't back it up.
I feel like they should just like make me the guy. Like all these takes that they put out, like the Pop-Tart takes, all that, even if I'm not having anything to do with it, they should just attach it to me and blame me.
Just wait till week 1 in SoFi when there's a shitload of Pop-Tarts all over that field.
That's gonna be awesome. We're gonna throw Pop-Tarts at Davante Adams when he walks on.
It's not the Raider fans are gonna take him.
There's not
gonna be Chargers
Pop-Tarts at your own receiver. And by the way, Raiders fans have reacted in a very interesting way to this because when I posted a video about this, I got nothing but hate, by the way, for my video on this topic. But I posted a video defending Davante Adams. The entire video from start to finish. 60 full seconds of defending Davante Adams, talking about how he's a Hall of Fame wide receiver, all this stuff, and he deserves better. That's what the Chargers were trying to say in that post. Obviously, they put a trash can Pop-Tart, Davante Adams, tagged the Raiders, trying to tell the Raiders, you guys are treating Davante Adams like trash. You need to treat him better. And y'all are all bent out of shape about it when we're trying to defend your own player.
Joe, I will be recording and narking out all of the Raiders fans who throw stuff onto the field so you guys can all be sent away before the game starts.
If anybody throws cinnamon sugar, brown sugar Pop-Tarts on the field, they should be immediately arrested because if you have those, bring them all to me. I'll take care of them for you. You can throw all the other nasty ones out there, but you got the cinnamon brown sugar, I'll take them.
I'm so excited for one.
If you throw Pop-Tarts on the field at Davante Adams, you're supporting the Chargers posting the Pop-Tart post.
Are they throwing them at Davante Adams, or are they just throwing it out there to go, hey, fuck Chargers?
Like if he's on the field,
Pop-Tarts are just being thrown everywhere.
If you're on the field and Pop-Tarts are being thrown on the field, Davante Adams is there, a player who got made fun of with a Pop-Tart. I'm just saying.
And I'm not.
It doesn't matter where you throw it from. You're throwing it at Davante Adams.
You're just trying to turn it different ways, Mike. Either way, Davante Adams is going to put up another 10 catches and 250 yards
and lose 27-17.
Not to Augustus Edwards.
It's goodness gracious. I really hope that it's just a beatdown of epic proportions. Week 1,
like 63-21.
Yes,
you can make
exactly
a bet, Joe.
That.
We can make a bet who has more yards, Gus Edwards or Davante Adams in that game. I'm on team Gus. More touchdowns and more yards than Davante Adams in the game.
Look, the Raiders don't even have to throw a pass to beat the Chargers. They could be like just like they beat the Chiefs. They could be like, oh, we'll just use our defense to do it.
This is gonna be great. We're gonna scrap the Doves going through Twitter. We're 47 minutes in.
You want to play trivia instead?
Yeah, let's play some trivia and then we'll get out of here. Everybody have a great weekend.
You better not do us dirty again.
Oh, I got actually have a decent trivia. I had one from last week. I just saved it for a carryover this week.
Yeah, good. Let's do it. Now it's going to be inaccurate trivia. And now it's time for Inaccurate Trivia with NFL Mike.
Hosted by, not with.
There it is.
Anyways, welcome to NFL Mike's Trivia Show, where NFL Mike makes up the trivia games and the answers. So if the answers are wrong, I just made this shit up. But anyways, today's trivia for Tony Tucker and Joe Morley, the not-so-stars of this show, which is why they put my name first in the logo. Here's the trivia for today. In every decade in NFL history, there has been a multiple-time MVP except for 2. No, I'm not asking you which decades. I'm going to go decade by decade, and you have to tell me in that decade which quarterback or which player, sorry, it's not just quarterbacks, won multiple MVPs within that decade. Some decades have multiple players. Some decades only have one player. And there's 2 decades that have 0 players. And we're going to try and figure those out. Okay? You guys get the game?
All right, let's go.
I think so.
We're going to start with the newest one. Okay? So it should be easy.
Aaron Rodgers.
In the 2020s, only one player won multiple MVPs. And who was it, Joe?
Aaron Rodgers.
You're right. You're right. In 2021 and 2020, Aaron Rodgers was the NFL MVP 2 years ago on a worse team than he's on now. Just throwing it out there.
Just getting more of his Jets love. He's just finding ways.
One of the years Aaron Rodgers shouldn't have won it. They gave it to him because he's a quarterback. It was the year that Justin Jefferson should have won.
Wait. If you don't think that he should have deserved it, maybe we should talk about the 2010s. Because there's also some players who won multiple MVPs in the 2010s as well.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is one of those too. Yeah, I know where you were going with this. Where you're setting this thing up, just a hype train of Jets love going through here. So in
Aaron Rodgers did win the MVP in 2011 and 2014, but there's one more player that won 2 MVPs in the 2010s.
Tom Brady.
You're right, Tony.
Yeah,
you're right. All right, the 2000s.
Someone
won it 3 times in the 2000s.
Peyton Manning.
Final answer?
That was going to be my guess.
Yeah.
That's correct. You guys are 100% right now. There's only one other player in NFL history to win 3 MVPs in the same decade, and he was in the 1990s.
I know the answer. You guys already know I know the answer in the 90s. This is my boy. This is what brought me to football here.
Well, this is what's going to bring you back to live on the internet, Tony, because you got eaten alive a couple weeks ago.
It is Brett Favre. You're right.
Yeah, it's Favre. We got 3 consecutive MVPs. Rodgers never did that.
Brett Favre.
I will say Brett Favre's a scammer, even though he was a Hall of Fame quarterback. Anyways.
Let's not get into his personal life. Doesn't seem like a tremendous guy.
There was another quarterback in the 1990s that won 2 MVPs.
In the 90s, 2 MVPs, Steve Young.
Correct.
Yeah.
Damn, you guys are good at this one.
So basically, you're just looking for who wins, right? Who owned that decade.
Kinda, but it's a little bit interesting because like a guy like Joe Montana, MVPs in the 80s and 90s, but they're split up.
Yeah.
So you would think that he might be an answer, but he's not an answer for any of these.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, 1980s.
So the
1980s. I think this might be the first decade where there are no repeats because we would have had a Lawrence Taylor one in one of these years.
1986. I don't actually know. I just made that.
Yeah, we would have had a Montana one in one of these years. I want to say Boomer
81.
Esiason.
I know that one.
Boomer Esiason, I think, won one for the Bengals in one of these years, or maybe that was 1990. I don't remember. I'm going to go ahead and say the 1980s.
No repeats.
No repeats. That's going to be my final answer.
You're right.
The
Tony.
1980s.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right, Tony. Same thing with the 70s. No repeats in the 70s either. So we went 20. We went 20 years. He didn't win 2 in a row, or he didn't win 2 within that decade. I think he won like 69 and 76 or something.
Okay. So the 1970s and the 1980s got it correct. It wasn't until we started getting more social media, more actual coverage on the NFL out there, where people started just making this award just to for fan friendly, to put the bigger names out there. I think that's it, right? Because you actually got the players that actually did their job and did it and won it correctly, and then after that, it just became a popularity of it.
Yeah. Also, this is back when the running backs would win the MVP more than the quarterbacks.
So yes,
maybe not more, maybe equal, maybe not more.
This is end of the trivia question, right? We're not going back into the 60s. We're not going to talk about Len Dawson and Bart Starr or whatever.
There is 2 more. There's the 60s. There's someone that did it twice in the 60s and someone that did it twice in the 50s. But I didn't expect you guys to know that because you guys were born in 63, 64?
Tony was 55.
65, somewhere in that range, between 61 and 69. I'm not expecting you to go much further back.
I would say if I had to guess, it would have been one of those 2 guys, maybe a Johnny Unitas or Jim Brown.
Yeah, that's them right there. 60s. Yeah. Johnny Unitas won the award twice, 64, 67. And Jim Brown won it back-to-back, 57, 58, one of the few back-to-back winners.
Yeah, those would have been my guesses in that. I do want to say this. Let's end the show on this. This is something I just thought about. Maybe you guys can help me think of another player. But so we always talk about how it's the MVP has become a quarterback award. But I think this year, let's say the Vikings hypothetically win 10 or 11 games. and Justin Jefferson goes for like 1,900 yards, do you think they're giving that award? They're giving votes to Sam Darnold, or they're giving the votes to Justin Jefferson if he has that kind of year where it's like, 15 touchdowns, 121 catches, and 1,800 yards. He didn't even have to break a record. He would be the MVP. And I think a lot of times that's the part that we're missing. Like, if we look around, we probably could find it. The problem is the hill they have to climb to be in a situation like that is the difference maker. Because
it's stupid because like there was a year where Calvin Johnson had 2,000 yards and then didn't win the MVP. I don't know who won the MVP that year, but
wait, what year was it? It was what was that? 2015?
2015 sounds like a Brady year. I think Brady was 14.
With Cam Newton.
I'll just look up Calvin Johnson's career stats. But I understand what you're saying, Tony. Like the bar for a quarterback is to just kind of put up the most numbers in the league, and you're probably going to be the MVP if your team's a winning team, 12-win team, 11-win team, or more. But for a receiver, it's like you have to break every record in the book, and the quarterbacks have to struggle a little.
So I think what I think it is like, because Joe made the point that made me think of this is Joe started saying like the NFL turned the MVP into a marketing opportunity, right? Where they want those players.
2012.
And Mike, I'm going to give you a win right here that you weren't expecting to come. Me and Mike over the past couple of years have been arguing about whether or not Justin Jefferson was one of the faces of the NFL. I think after becoming the highest paid non-quarterback, getting the contract he got, getting all of the attention that he's going to get or that he's getting from wide receiver, there's now even more commercials of him that are coming out. He's entered into that for me. I thought Mike was prematurely crowning him as a face of the NFL. I think now it is clearly he is one of those guys. So Justin Jefferson starts off the season in that conversation, but behind the QBs. Like he's somebody that the NFL would be really excited to give the award to. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. Yeah, I just checked. None. That if Tyreek Hill had a cleaner off-the-field history, that he would have been higher up in the conversation for winning MVP, because the league and sort of, when I say the league, I mean sort of the fans and everybody in general, don't view Tua as an MVP caliber quarterback. So, like, that's where you can have a guy like Tyreek Hill could have had that opportunity. If Justin Jefferson has a Tyreek Hill type season with the Vikings, and let's say the Vikings win the North this year with 11 games, and he has that year that I said, he's MVP. And that's what it's going to take. And there's a few spots where that shit can happen, where like, a couple of years ago, Nick Chubb could have ran for 1,900, had 2,400 all-purpose yards, and the Browns win the division. He could have been up there for MVP because of the quarterback situation.
So at no point will we ever see a defensive player as MVP?
I think that if TJ, like I made it, I'm working on it actually. It's scripted and I'm working on it in the background. I'm working on a video where it's like players with the best chance to dethrone Lamar as the MVP. And really it's just my list for MVP candidates basically in order, but I just make it unique for the video. But I had TJ Watt up there as one of the guys just because, he shouldn't be able to win MVP because he has to get 25 sacks. But do I think he can get 25 sacks? Yes. I think he can get 25 sacks. And that would win him the MVP.
Well, not even that.
And that's stupid that it takes that.
Look at what TJ, watch the Steelers games. Go back and watch any Pittsburgh Steelers games. At the end of the game, when the Steelers needed a big play to win the game, TJ Watt made that strip sack or that big play to win the game.
He's unstoppable.
How is that not considered an MVP? Yeah, it doesn't look good because his numbers don't look good here, and you can't be like, oh, he had this many yards. But you look at what he did to win the games for the Steelers. He was the guy who made the play.
And you look around the rest of the defense, and like almost everything that's worked for the Steelers over the last 5 years has worked in some kind of butterfly effect way because of what they have to do to try and slow down TJ Watt. Everyone else is just going one-on-one, man for man, because they got a triple team TJ Watt. He's such a game wrecker. But by the way, it was 2012 was the year Calvin had that crazy year, and that was the same year Adrian Peterson went off. So I guess that's just bad luck. Kind of throw that that example out the window. And J.J. Watt was actually the runner-up behind Adrian Peterson. It wasn't even Calvin Johnson. Just crazy.
Wow.
So I do think
those three guys were nuts. I can't wait to see them in the Hall of Fame.
Joe, I do think my argument about the wide receiver goes for the same for running back or defensive players, right? Like hypothetically in a season last year where the Jets are still winning games after Aaron Rodgers and they're dragging Zach Wilson through the season when the offense is only putting up 16 points a game and the team is still winning at an incredible rate. You are going to put that defensive player that you think shines the most in that situation. The problem with having the defensive guys in the situation outside of like the sack categories is that it's hard for fans to put a metric on their worth, because you could have a player like Deion Sanders who wasn't getting targeted. But to me, if the dude is essentially cutting the field in half, how is he not one of the most valuable players on the field? Richard Sherman in his prime, where Aaron Rodgers literally said, I'm only throwing to one side of the football field because I don't want to throw at Richard Sherman. Like that happened in an NFL game. That shows the value of those players, but it's not quantifiable. Like you can't put a number on that. So I think that we can see this, and we will start to see more as these analytics people get in and they start like flushing out numbers that like to me really don't make sense. And I think they're kind of bullshit. You know, there's like, some of these new numbers that I'm hearing that are being like created where there's new analytics for things for like, it's crazy. But I'm old, so I won't hate on young people bringing new ways to analyze the game.
Yeah, Sherman had like 30 interceptions in a 5-year stretch. This is just nuts. And he was never in consideration for any of these awards, not even Defensive Player of the Year.
But he should have been. That's the thing. Exactly. It's like when you have a guy who can play the run like he could play the run, and the cover corner that he was, in my mind, he's a Hall of Famer. Like he'll be in there. He had a stretch where he was one of 3 guys where it's like, oh yeah, that's it. And I think you need to have that 4-year run to really be there. Now, there's a different conversation. People will, as soon as you say a player that they might think is on the fringe, they compare him to the Champ Baileys and the Deion Sanders and Darrelle Revis and whatever. And it's like, okay, but are there some other guys in there that are in the Hall of Fame that never reached the peak of him? Like, could we say that the Hall of Fame is not just the 4 or 5 greatest players at their position of whatever it is? Because if you had to start comparing every defensive end to Reggie Watt, I got bad news for you. It's going to be a real short list of defensive ends in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, especially if Reggie White and TJ Watt came together and made a love child and called Reggie Watt. That would be fucking nuts. That would be nuts. You realize you just called him Reggie Watt?
Did I call him Reggie Watt? There it is.
I know what you're talking about, but
I thought I said Reggie White, but whatever I said, you got the point.
Reggie Watt, a mixture of the two. You got the long arms of TJ Watt on Reggie White's fucking monster body.
The leverage that he was able to create to be able to be lifting up like 350-pound offensive linemen and literally throwing them while still running at the quarterback is unparalleled in my opinion.
Well, edge rushers have gotten so good, guys. They're just letting offensive linemen hold. They just let them now. So they're like, if we didn't let them hold, there would be no game. That's how good the edge rushers are fucking getting.
One of my favorite guys in the media is Mark Schlereth, and he was on one of the shows I was watching this week, and he made a great point. He said offensive line is the one position where we are asked to be perfect on every single play, but we are the worst athletes on the field going up against some of the best athletes on the field. And if we mess up and miss them one time and allow that guy to get one sack, he's going to the Pro Bowl, and we're a piece of shit who should be kicked out of the league. And I was like, holy shit, Schlereth, like, you are 1,000% correct. Exactly. Because when you talk to Chargers fans about Zion Johnson, they go, oh, he's a bust. And it's like the guy will literally have 65 of 70 plays where they're flawless. And then he'll have like a couple ones where they're a little weak and then 2 really bad plays, like blown assignments or something. And then people are like, this guy's a bust. And I'm like, Zion Johnson is absolutely not a bust. He's a very good football player. But because he has a couple of lapses, all of a sudden he can't play anymore. It's like, all right.
We've gotten to the point, like when I watch a Raider game, which I try to avoid them as much as I can, but it's just they keep finding a way onto my TV screen. I just watch Crosby the whole game with a smile and just laugh. So this guy's probably so pissed. He's getting choked. He's getting held. His wrists are getting. He's getting put in wrist locks on a football field. Like this is some kind of MMA.
Joe, this one's for you. Max Crosby is the perfect defensive candidate to win MVP, right? Great comeback story where he's sober, he's whatever. The Raiders don't have anybody on the offense really that can likely be there. Devontae Adams, obviously, if he had 1,800 yards, like whatever. But like if the Raiders win 11 or 12 games and Max Crosby has 19 and a half sacks, because they're starting to acknowledge the pressure number. More fans are starting to understand what that means. If they start going, oh, well, Max Crosby had 125 pressures this year with 19 and a half sacks, he's going to get an MVP vote. Like that's the kind of things that we need to start happening. Like Max Crosby's in that caliber of player. Like I hate the Raiders too. That guy is one of the best like defensive players in football right now.
He'll still give it to Myles Garrett.
Yeah, probably. He could have had 6 sacks in that Rams game with Baker Mayfield a few years ago. That one was probably the most egregious one I've ever seen, where you get held on every play of the final drive of the game.
And the funny thing, too, is because of the black jerseys, it's so obvious when they're grabbing and pulling jerseys because a lot of times they have these like bright white or yellow gloves on their hands, and you can just see them like a fistful of jersey just – and I'm like, well, if it weren't the Raiders, I'd actually give a shit. I love the messages from Joe during football season where he's losing his mind. Do they ever fucking call holding? Like, he's so pissed about it. We're like, not against the Chiefs, Joe, and they're not calling it for the Raiders because they don't like it.
That's why I love Khalil Mack so much. And by the way, not this year, but next year, he'll officially been on the Chargers longer than he was the Raiders and the Bears. But, just got sidetracked there. When Khalil Mack gets held, he just runs straight through the guy. He doesn't give a fuck. Go ahead, hold me all you want. That actually helps me out.
Khalil also does a pretty good job of he doesn't stop moving his feet and throw his arms in the air. There's part of this new generation where they're trying to draw the flag or whatever. And I have noticed some of these guys, like, instead of just continuing to, like, they get that edge and the guy gets up around their neck, the older guys are still trying to cut the corner and get there, and the holds look more drastic. You can actually see them wrapping it up. When these guys stop moving their feet and they throw their hands up in the air, the offensive lineman has a chance to readjust because the guy's stopped his play trying to draw a flag by throwing his hands up in the air.
Yeah.
Going full
to draw attention. And then I think you just got to keep running through it, and you got to keep almost getting choked out and just let the chips fall where they may.
That full LeBron flop, huh? Speaking of which, USA. Who's out there watching this USA? You can't call them the Dream Team 4. We can't just keep calling these teams Dream Teams, but this team is freaking nuts.
They are, yeah. It's pretty crazy. I feel bad for Jaylen Brown. We don't need to talk about this. We can. I would like to get into some Olympics talk at some point. Like, maybe we'll end the show with like certain shout outs.
Yeah, we could start like when they start playing the events, we'll like have like a quick little live reaction here on MJT. We'll replay the event or something. Because Summer Olympics, I like the Winter Olympics too. I go through phases where I like the Olympics, don't like the Olympics. Right now I'm in a phase where I'm kind of excited to watch the Olympics. I know when I was a kid, it was great. Michael Johnson, those gold shoes in 1992 in Atlanta. I can't wait for the next round. In 2028, we're going to have football.
We will. That'll be fun. What I love is all these NFL guys saying that they want to be a part of it. And I'm like, so hang on a second. You're making $60 million? You think the franchise is going to let you go play flag football and risk a torn Achilles or an elbow injury or like get
Paul
get
George.
You're not.
Well,
They're not.
They're all be retired anyway. So
Didn't Paul George break his leg in half in an Olympic game?
I think he did suffer a pretty bad injury.
Yeah.
In a, I don't know if it was an Olympic or if it was like one of those FIFA like World Championships or whatever. But I think he did suffer a pretty nasty injury in a game like that. You can't do it in the NFL to have like to even risk these guys being out there.
But even if it's not NFL, if we just get the best flag football players in this country on the team, we should smoke them. We should not be having no embarrassing losses like to Japan a couple weeks ago. Nothing stupid like that. I've been around the world. I've played football against Germany's team that they sent to represent their country, against Japan's team, against South Korea's team. They all suck. They could put them all together, and we shouldn't have an issue with our college athletes or even our high school athletes.
Well, we did. I
know. That's what I'm worried about. We cannot lose the first football Olympic tournament. It needs to be embarrassing. I want to see 100-0. I want to see 63-21 on that scoreboard in favor of USA.
Whoa. Those are two numbers that we don't say in conjunction anymore.
Reminds me of the Junior Goodwill games in 1992, Tony.
The which games?
The Junior Goodwill games.
For
when Coach Kabambe led his team, the underdogs.
That's right. Ducks fly together. Quack, quack, quack. Mike doesn't get this because he doesn't know any references. Mighty Ducks, one of my favorite movies of all time. I was also a hockey player.
Well, let me just say, Iceland had nothing on Team USA.
I was like negative 10 years old. Negative 10 years old at that time, guys.
Hey, Joe Biden, stop whispering. Come on, man.
That was funny. He kept whispering like we're going to take him more seriously if he whispers.
Don't you know what I'm talking about, man? That's what I'm talking about. All right, let's get out of here.
Ice cream spot down the street. I mean, tried out that ice cream. Good ice cream.
Okay.
I'm going to start using that in my speech. Like, anytime I'm talking now, I'll be like, and until the Raiders start losing, nobody says that. Nobody says it. All right?
Yeah.
I'll just say stuff like that.
The idea that the Chargers aren't going to win the Super Bowl this year is just ridiculous to me. Just to even talk about the idea. He keeps saying that shit over and over again. The idea.
You already talk, like, people already talk to themselves a lot. So it's always like, instead of just being like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. Just be like, just whisper, and it's like the second person that's coming out. It's cool.
Well,
all right.
You can tell, right? Everyone can tell in these press conferences and in anything that he's done over like the last 6 months. I don't know how it's not talked about more. This dude is getting fed lines in his ear. Like, all the pausing, all that stuff is while he listens to the person in his ear telling him what the fuck to say. And it still
you're not getting fed lines here?
And it still gets fucked up.
Me and Tony are getting fed lines on the MJT.
Oh, really?
Exactly.
I'm honored I can keep up with you guys by myself as one person here.
Mike,
right now my wife is like, you're spending way too much time. Get off line.
This show will never end, Tony.
And Joe, the idea that this show went an hour and 12 minutes is absolutely preposterous.
We didn't even have time.
I want everybody to go have a great weekend out there. Put something nice on Twitter. Say something nice to somebody out there. Let them know how it is. We appreciate you stopping by MJT Football, hanging out with us knuckleheads. Have a great weekend. Get out there. Stay cool. Positivity. Peace. See you later.
Like the video.